Hello, 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 crossroads, witches, and other interesting magical beings. Always say it, always mean it. I am so happy that I'm getting the opportunity to shoot another video. And I hope you find inspiration in my content. I am an old school Southern conjuring witch. I have been stirring on cauldrons for over 40 years now, and I do these videos as a way of sharing my knowledge with the next generation. Folk magic, folk witchcraft is very much about making sure that our traditions aren't lost, and the way we can do that is inspiring the next one. So I really hope you enjoy my content. And with that, let's talk about solitaire witches. A lot of times I think people feel like, that somehow if you have to be part of a group or an organization in order to validate their experience, that, if you're a solitaire, then somehow it's a little, dare I say, less than. And I want to first by saying, bullshit. All witches at heart are solitaires. We were solitaires long before we were in covens. We were able to survive a millennia without really talking to each other very much. So historically, solitaires are the ones that have kept us moving and have passed along those traditions. So I wanted to do a little blurb out on that. But as a solitaire, sometimes it is hard to stay motivated, to stay inspired, to stay connected. And sometimes also you have the sense of FOMO. Social media shows groups, doing all these fun things. And you're like, oh, I wish I could, and all this stuff. But deep down inside, do you really? Do you really? Working with a group is a whole other energy for those in which, I do work within group energy, but I also, I know that really, like I said earlier, all of us are solitaires. At the end of the day, you still have to go home and feed your personal altar. You still have to keep your connection to divinity as you know it. Your connection to spirit realm, your connection to the land you stand on. It's not about what coven, tradition, or organization I'm a member of. It's about what am I doing for me. And the first thing we have to do is those daily practices. And these are simple things that a lot of times I think people feel it's so simple that it just must be none worth about. But give yourself a 21-day challenge. That every time you get in the shower for the next 21 days, you're going to say something nice about yourself. Every time you stir your coffee, your tea, or whatever your morning ritual is, you brush your teeth. Whatever you do in the morning, something that you do without fail, use that opportunity to set your intention for the day. If you make your bed every day, as you're making your bed, say the words out loud. Today is going to be an amazing day. All of the obstacles in my way, I will be able to work through. There's a beautiful way to set your day. Whatever you have going on, put it in a light where you're empowering yourself. But do this for 21 days. And I'm going to give one of my good old Southern guarantees. It works. If it didn't work, we wouldn't be saying it over and over again. And as a solitaire, sometimes we get a little slack on ourselves. And it's so important that we have those. The other thing that is so important, I said it earlier, was the land you stand on. Connecting with nature in your own environment. And if your environment, is Fifth Avenue, New York City, that is your nature. Well, it's where you're at and learning to use the space you have. I was recently talking with an interesting magical being who, talking about going across the parking lot, and that they always go this this sort of a long way around the parking lot. It's an extra couple of minutes, but it puts them walking through a green space, like a little green belt. And they use that opportunity to stop, to ground themselves, to touch dirt. And they do this every day they leave to go home from work. And when they were telling me about it, I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. You know, we often think we're like, oh, well, get out in nature. Like, you know, you got to drive out to the middle of frickin' nowhere and hike 5 miles. All right. That's not what we're saying. And I know some of those social media accounts, she's standing in a beautiful field of wildflowers. That's not our reality. Most of our realities are suburban backyards, our green spaces on the edge of a parking lot as we're leaving work, you know. And how do we learn to utilize those spaces so that we can ground? Taking a walk through your own neighborhood. Now, some neighborhoods have low walkability. On the way home, there's a cute little park stop for a couple of minutes. Take a 3-4 minute turnabout the park. You know, start looking around you and finding those places where you can connect and starting to incorporate them into your daily ritual. And really, when we talk about the land we stand on, we have to remember those that were on this land before us, you know, all the way back, you know, indigenous folks that were here, you know, prehistory of this place, different pieces of lands have different stories, but take the time to learn that so that you have a sense of the dirt you're truly standing on. One of the things for me, you know, recently we purchased this 5-acre piece of property here outside of Charleston. We've been here over a year and a half now. I was originally from the area, and then I moved to San Diego for 7 years. Had a lot of fun, but in the end, I came home. This is my dirt, my folks, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. I'm so Southern, you know, it's one of those families. But learning the history of this dirt, I started doing my own little sleuthing, you know, and we have the internet, the matrix knows all sorts of things. And finding out this property, finding out who the indigenous folks were, finding out the local history, because I, you know, live in a little town right outside of Charleston. The whole history of all of that, so that when I'm standing outside in my space, I can give honor to the folks that stood on this dirt before me, and how important it is for us to stay connected to our surroundings. And this isn't group ritual things. This is you having that sense of connection to nature, to the dirt, to the land you stand on, to your surroundings. And that's a personal thing, all right? Back to, you know, Solitaire's, y'all been doing it for a long, long time. Never discount that. The other thing I want to talk about, we always hear it, and I'm forever saying this on folks, and I'm like, and I'm saying it because it's true. For several years, you know, was a slack-ass witch. I was a young witch. I'm like, why do I need to write it down? All right. And about 20 years ago, started really seriously paying attention to my journal, my BOS, my Book of Shadows, my grimoire, my magical book, whatever phraseology you want to use. But I started really putting a little effort into it. I treat mine as a magical journey scrapbook, the ultimate travel guide. I was just talking about this with the 13 Moon folks, you know, where it's not about writing it all down perfectly, all right? There is imperfect perfection. You want to be imperfectly perfect. You don't want to be perfect. No, you can't achieve that. That's unattainable. Why even try? You know, I can't fly either. I'm not going to spend all day trying to flap my wings. But when you're taking a walk and this leaf comes and you hear this whisper and it lands at your feet and you pick it up and you're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. take it home, get you some Scotch tape and put it on the page of your book. Write down the date, fall walk. Maybe don't write anything down, write down a couple little words. But you have just said everything you needed to say about the magic. Because when you open that page up a year from now, 5 years from now, it is going to take you back to that moment. You will, your memory be triggered. Everything, you'll be like, I remember, and it will bring that energy up. And every time you touch that leaf, every time you touch that page, you're tapping back into that energy. You're tapping back into that moment. It's not that I need this powerful incantation written down. It should be a travel book of your magical journey. And it should be a book that you can open up. And again, that's a place where you're going to find your inspiration. I go back through, some of my journals, and I love them. I love the fact that I started scrapbooking. I use stickers. I have a fortune cookie that I had an evening, and there was some really cool things said, and I got this fortune cookie that was like so spot on. And I took it home and I put it in my book, and I wrote a little note about it. Now every time I see that I remember that moment. It was a very empowering moment. It's a very empowering fortune cookie, and I can still draw strength upon it. Even though this actual incident probably, 12 years ago. But I open that page and I'm right back in that moment of empowerment. I can draw upon that energy. That is a spell, a magical formula that is still working. And I can still draw upon it. It's in my book, and that's what it should be for you. It should be an expression of you. Over these beautiful book of charm BOSs, all written, some of it in calligraphy, with like illuminated manuscript. I would rather have a book that is held together by duct tape and stained by wine. Because that means that I've been using that one, as opposed to something so pretty that it sits on a bookshelf and I never take it down. And the only thing it is pretty. Your book should be, again, your magical journey, and I'll be able to walk through that yourself. All right. The other thing I want to talk about is remembering to celebrate the seasons, the equinoxes, the solstices, or whatever your calendar is, feast days to deities, and also your own personal family traditions. And sometimes this is a low-key affair, and sometimes you can make it a fairly grand affair. Where you can have, a summer pool party that may or may not be a summer solstice celebration. You don't have to use some words, and you can invite everybody over, including the neighbors. We can all have a good time, but celebrating those seasonal changes and staying connected to them. A lot of witches do stay within the moon cycles, the lunar cycles. And if you're one of those, really staying in it. It is through the cycle of nature that we stay attuned. And as far as, deities, entities, gods, goddesses, whatever the feast day is for the particular one that you are journeying with, make a point of making a little something. And again, some years it may be a little something, and other years you may have the privilege of being able to invite over a couple of people, or you may opt to, I don't want anybody here ever. This is always just my personal space. I know I have a private altar that I'm not really keen, even for my moon brothers and sisters, members of my coven, my tradition. No, that's none of your business. That's my space, I'm like, we all have personal spaces. And if that is what you have, honor it. You know, we're not all techno witches taking pictures of everything we do. And I'm not. I love the techno witches and mages and other interesting magical beings who use the matrices within their magic realm. I'm very fascinated by it, and have been talking with some of our other witches here in the house about how they do it. You know, I'm old school. Give me a shovel and a mason jar. But I also understand that they're doing some. All right, you know, I don't have to understand your magic. I just got to respect you're doing it. And they're doing something. So finding ways to express your magic in your authentic voice is so important. And I hope the last one here I have is what I was just talking about, is exploring new areas of magic. Try new things. We are witches and other interesting magical beings. We are the creatures that press the button. There's a red button on the wall. We'll walk over and be like, press. I want to see what's going to happen. We are the edge of society. We are the ones in which, in so many ways, guide society. As go the magic folks, so go mankind. All right, we're the cutting edge in so many ways, and we were like that 1,000 years ago. We were like that 10,000 years ago, and we're like that now. And so don't be afraid to embrace new ideas, you know, learning new ways of looking at magic, learning new ways of just whatever you're doing, you know. Don't be afraid to pick up and try new things. Don't get stagnant. Don't get in that bubble is what I'm saying. And with that said, I'm going to end this video. I'm going to thank you all so much again for your support of these past several years. I am just truly grateful. And with that said, witches, get out there, fly those brooms, have a bright, blessed day. And as always, amen, blessed be, ashe, and a bobo.